So the first methodology that we're going to be looking at is the interest only one. The idea here is that we're accumulating assets over the years, and now we have a bucket of money. You could call it a nest egg. And now in retirement, this nest egg is going to produce our income. And the way it's going to produce our income is we're going to apply an interest rate to it. And every year, we're going to apply that interest rate, and it's going to give us our income. Back in the days when interest rates were higher, this was a much easier methodology. But today, not as much, with interest rates being considerably lower. So today we're going to look at 4%, and we'll also look at inflation along the way. So $3.9 million is our nest egg. 4% interest rate produces $150,000 of gross cash flow. We're going to pay taxes on all of that. And we're going to have a net cash flow to spend of $105,000 a year. Our nest egg stays in place, does the same thing in year 2 and 3 and on into the future. I'm going to show you one consideration being inflation. So that second to last column shows you the inflation adjusted income. This is just accounting for the loss of purchasing power over time. $1 today is not going to purchase as much in 10 years. And so this shows you what $105,000 would actually feel like from a spending standpoint into the future. That's the 85,000, 82,000, etc. So a few considerations here. The interest only approach does a decent job of dealing with the idea of running out of money because we're leaving the nest egg in place. At the same time, there is $3.9 million there to deal with sicknesses or injuries that might come about. The downside there from a liquidity standpoint is if we start spending the $3.9 million, our nest egg, well, now all of a sudden the next year, we're going to have less cash flow generated, right? If we're keeping that interest rate steady. And from a market standpoint, 4% interest rate is not a risk-free rate that we could obtain these days. However, when we're looking at investing conservatively over a long period of time, it is an obtainable rate. How obtainable, we don't really know, right? Depends on the degree of risk that we're taking over time. But the real story here is from a cash flow standpoint, we took $3.9 million and it's producing $105,000 for us, which to me is not a very exciting story. That's a considerable amount of assets to produce not insignificant, but not a significant amount of cash flow. In this standpoint, the money is all in a tax deferred or retirement account. That's why we're paying that 30% tax rate. If it were all in an after-tax account, perhaps our taxes would be a little bit lower with capital gains rates, if planned for accordingly. However, still from an efficiency standpoint, we're going to pay the same tax rate on all of the dollars every year because all of it is interest or capital appreciation. And like we see from an inflationary standpoint, $105,000 10 years into the future, we're having some interesting conversations. So there's advantages and disadvantages of this methodology, but this is the first one. And next we'll look at the total returns approach.